doing this. This is awesome.
I love this. And hello, you guys. We are live for episode 51. Like, we are over the hump now of, we're going over 50 now. Yeah, these are always so exciting. I actually haven't done anything other than a summit in a little while. So, but I get to do this twice a week. So
that's pretty cool.
Oh, it's fun to watch the evolutions of this grow, because before, and we'll drop here into the episode real quick. I can't talk tonight, you guys. Say hey as you guys come in. We are now on episode 51, so we are back on the countdown to episode 100, which means we're only 49 episodes away. Oh my god! But this is
get there almost by the end of the year.
I know. I have to go look and see when episode 100 is going to come up. But as you guys come in, say, hey, let me know where you're coming from. If you guys are feeling so called to do, please feel free to share the show. I would love you so much for it. Make sure to like, and as always, comment, interact. I love having the ability to have the audience join in with us and the guests. So yes, ask anything you want, interject, introduce dialogue, you guys. And wherever you're coming from, let me know. And if you catch us on the replay, put hashtag replay and let me know have you had any thoughts or gems from this. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how the show continues to evolve. Because I'm like, oh my god, I can't speak.
Evolutionize?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Evolve, but because of where it started. And then where it's at now, and now I have people going like, you should really make this into a podcast. So it's just interesting to see how it's going to continue to evolve, because now we're multi-streaming. So I don't know if I explained that to you, but we're actually on YouTube at the same time too.
That's cool.
We go across. So, all right, you guys, I'm going to drop into the intro, my epic intro. I'm 51 episodes in, and I still almost have this completely memorized, but don't at the same time. So I'm going to introduce my awesome guest after that, and we are going to get this puppy started. So without further ado, hello and welcome to the TUF Woman Table. The table where I invite some super badass, tough women like Haley here to take a seat and join in on the conversation and share her amazing story. At TUF Woman, I believe that all women have the power within themselves to live an authentic life, free from fear, confident in who they are, and empowered to go after that life, whatever that may look like to them. I share this belief by championing tough women who have walked through the fire, felt the fear, faced adversity, and kept pushing through it all. Women who now live the life they want as the woman they were created to be. And women who own their stories so other women can embrace and own theirs as well. Because as I said earlier, and as I always say on this show, when we give ourselves permission to own and share our story, we give someone else permission as well. So without further ado, I would love to introduce my guest. She is the CEO of Fiercely Marketing and Leadership Girl, which I'm excited to, I didn't meant to do research before we got on the show, but I'm excited to hear a little bit more about this, as well as I would love to hear more about this group that she grew to 64,000 women. Like, that's hats off to you, man. That's incredibly, incredibly impressive. So without further ado, my guest, Haley Gray.
Hi. Hello, everybody. This is exciting. This is so much fun to be here. There are very few things I get to do in my business that are quite as much as being a guest and reaching out to people and hopefully making the world a little bit of a better place.
Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of us who come into this space is really under the cause of just wanting to make our piece of the world, either our piece of the world or the world in general a little bit better. And, we do it through whatever way we manage to do it. Like, I love to empower women, which I feel from reading what you put, you want to help women embrace their power. And I think that that's such a beautiful cause, is to help women really tap into that. And I love that you talk about women in leadership, because that is a conversation that we're not having enough of, and we need to have more of. So yes, tell everybody a little bit about what you do as the CEO and what the companies that you founded and what you do right now. And then we're going to go ahead and drop into your story.
So a lot of what I do now is I do digital marketing. And specifically, I spend a lot of my time cleaning up marketing messes and figuring out where the holes are in a company's marketing strategies and plugging those holes and figuring out really what the end-to-end solution needs to look like and where all the gaps and the holes are and the solutions for it, but also like in a very custom way for that client, because there's no two businesses that are the same. And there's really not a perfect set of answers that is the same for any two businesses. Because, you know, if you hate podcasting, then maybe that's not the best way for you to market your business. If public speaking terrifies you, then perhaps let's find another way. So it's really about helping them identify that unique business fingerprint and, you know, really executing on it and doing it super well. So I love helping people find that way forward in a way that makes sense for them.
Oh, yes. I like that you talk about marketing messes, because I think there's a lot of stuff, a lot of noise out there about what your marketing should look like. And we get really caught up on what we think, myself included.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, I love to talk, and I've had more than enough people go, well, why don't you just market that way? Like, you know, get used to being on there more. And I'm like, okay. But then I'll force them to be like, no, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it this way. This is going to work. And it's just like, no, that's not.
I'm going to go write a blog every week that's 4,000 words long. Oh my gosh, I hate writing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would shoot myself. Like, I thought I was going to be like, I'll contribute to a magazine, but then I'm like, yeah, do you really want to do that? I'm like, no, I really don't. Oh my gosh. All right. So my favorite question of all is, what is the story behind what got you to what you're doing now? What was that story that made you go, you know what, I do want to show up in this space and I want to help people and I want to do it in this way?
So back a few years ago, I got my MBA from Duke, and I was working full-time at EMC, which was then acquired by Dell. So I was working as a software engineer, managing a group of interns in 3 different states and doing all the stuff. I went and I got my MBA because I was going to be a corporate chick. And my manager is like, you're not going to stay here. And I'm like, that's BS. So for 2 years, I heard you're not going to stay here. And let me preface this by saying the week before I started my MBA, my mother passed away unexpectedly. My dad required 24/7 care the entire time I was in school. And of course, I was the lucky child who had to oversee all the caregivers and power of attorney and all of that. And my dad passed away 8 weeks after I finished the program. And I had this moment of, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I here? I'm a square peg in a round hole. And I decided I was going to go out on my own. So I started my home care agency at that point. And I'm like, I'm never programming another computer again. I'm done with that part of my world. You know, cut that arm off. I'm going away. And I did that for 3 years until my oldest had a traumatic brain injury. And I realized I'm stubborn. I realized about 9 months later that I couldn't do it anymore. Could not do home care and take care of my child at the same time, who needed 24/7 supervision. You know, it just wasn't physically possible. I nearly put myself in the hospital, and I was like, okay, fine. I'll just do the social media stuff. I'm not going to do this website stuff. I just will do social media stuff, because I had already found out that I did social media stuff pretty well by that point. And people kept coming to me going, can you fix my website? You know, this website designer of mine half did the website. And I'm like, fine, okay, I'll fix it. Because I had been a developer for years and years at IBM. I had written, you know, literally hundreds of thousands of lines of code. I knew how to do this stuff. But I was like, I'm not really a website designer. And it just kind of progressed, where I would get another person who would come to me and I'd be like, okay, fine, I'll fix your website. And then the next one. So eventually it was like, okay, fine. You know, I'm not just going to do business consulting. I'm going to really do the marketing side and figure out how all of the pieces really tie together and get in there and dig in there and make it all work. Because websites are just kind of that outward facing facade of the business, but they're not really everything with the marketing. So, you know, it's really about understanding like okay, so you're doing the website, but then what does it connect to and how does it connect? And what are you trying to do with that website traffic? And what do you want people to do next? And I'm just such a people watcher kind of person that it just kind of progressed down that path where I'm like, okay, I do websites. I do a lot of websites. I do a lot with CRMs. I do a lot of sales funnels, you know? It's that understanding the psychology behind it. And I'm just such a people watcher, and I love behavioral economics. I love the psychology. I love the user interface, the design. And I really like tying all the pieces of the tech together because I'm just like a little tinkerer by nature. So it's just grown.
Isn't it funny how we spend so much time, especially as women, I think, going, no, this is exactly what I'm going to do. Like, literally, this has been the theme for me for like a month now. And Cheney says, hey, Cheney. She says, good for you. Heck yeah, man. Like, yeah, isn't it funny how we spend a lot of time saying that this is how this is supposed to look, and we fight what we're actually supposed to be here doing? Like, I find that this seems to be a theme where we're like, okay, and this was one for me that coming, and this is the theme actually, has been defining my success by what I think other people want my success to look like.
Yeah, and what I think other people should think my success looks like. So you're trying to like reverse get into their heads to say, well, this is what success or what Haley is really supposed to look like based on some sort of like almost like fun house, you know, like where you're in the wavy mirrors and things are like reflecting all weird, kind of version of yourself. And I've done that to myself over and over and over again. So it's interesting where I've started to say, no, this is who I really am, you know, and started to kind of step into that individualism. And it's really not easy to do.
It's funny. Janie said, she said it's easier to fight it than actually give up the control and step into what you're called to do.
Oh, yeah. I'm a master of fighting it. Totally. I mean, I've known for a while that I love doing it, but, you know, it's really kind of funny. You know, we put ourselves into these nice, neat little boxes. Good girls should do this, you know? And I mean, I had the influence of my parents, and I could pretty much choose any major that I wanted in college as long as it was an engineering major.
Any influence or, you know, degree, as long as it fits in this box.
Exactly. And my brother was the same way. And he rebelled. I was much more of a rule follower. But yeah, he went to Vanderbilt and it did not go well. And he ended up leaving 2 semesters later. And, you know, he has followed his own trail and ended right back up in IT, mind you. But, you know, it was very much that you can be anything you want as long as it's an engineer from my parents.
I like that. So, so I want to know what pivoted you into starting Leadership Girl and all that? Because I think that that's fascinating. And I think, especially talking about this part of the conversation where like, yeah, I felt like I had to fit into this box because this is what I thought. And I wanted to be the good girl. And I'm reading, Harvard Business Reviews, there's a couple like articles on women in business and leadership and all that. And I love the dynamic of female leadership. I think it's just intoxicating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But again, the conversation is not one that's had. So what prompted you to want to start Leadership Girl? What prompted that journey, especially because on one end you're doing all the marketing and then on the other end you're doing all the
about leadership, right? That actually came about while I was at Fuqua at Duke's business school, getting my MBA. And, it was an interesting period in my life in a lot of ways. I had that realization that, the number of women in tech is dropping steadily. And in fact, I was in an event tonight where we're trying to get girls into STEM fields. And of course, 80% of the girls that are going into STEM fields are going into biology. Not engineering, not computer science, nothing else. So that to me is kind of an alarming statistic. But the other thing that really struck me is that in my career, there were very few women who were in leadership positions in IT companies. But that's because there's no women that are becoming engineers. Women are not getting MBAs. My class at Duke was 10% women. Not because they, didn't want to, or it's not that Duke wasn't recruiting women and, really putting a huge focus on it. It's just that the women are not applying at the same level that the men are. So how are women supposed to get into leadership positions if they don't have the experience, if they don't have the mentorship, if they don't have the education, and the infrastructure is just not there to support them becoming leaders. And it's really interesting to me to see how can we better support one another to become leaders as entrepreneurs, as moms, as, in corporate, et cetera, and how can we support each other? And I don't know that, any one of those components really exists in isolation. I think that they really reflect one another and work back and forth with one another. Even being a small business owner, I work with other women who are in corporate leadership or in leadership in those positions. So it's a lot of fun.
Cheney, hold on. Cheney says, tech is something I can't understand. I wish I could. Both, man.
So, but I'll make the comment, when we start in school, as, humans, girls naturally tend to do very well in school. And by middle school, they're tending to drop out of math and science majors in droves. So they're very good at math and science until middle school. That's because they're really good at following rules on average. And boys really struggle with math and science, the whole way through, but they're basically taught and ingrained that, it is worth doing. So I'm going to continue struggling through it until I learn to master it. But girls kind of naturally succeed at everything, and it's easy until about fifth grade, until it's not, when you actually have to start, getting down to brass tacks and practicing and doing the work and really working your way through some of the math and science concepts that are a little bit more abstract and a little bit more difficult. And so at that inflection point where things kind of naturally become harder for girls, they just drop out because they're not used to having to really struggle through things. But boys on average, and there's a lot of studies around this, tend to struggle the whole way through elementary school and the whole way through middle school, because the way that we structure our schools is very counterintuitive for a lot of them. They're supposed to sit down, shut up, and not wiggle. Well, boys kind of by their definition are loud, boisterous, and they want to wiggle all the time. So, they're kind of fighting against that nature. So they've already had to learn that skill of, I'm going to work my way through this. And I saw it with my girls too, where they did really, really well early on. But then they would hit a certain point in their math and in the science where they really struggled. And, it was really hard to get them to kind of change the mindset and the thinking around the math and the chemistry or AP chemistry or whatever, because, it is such a different mindset of, it's okay to struggle. It's normal to struggle. Not very few people just naturally can breathe math.
She's like, I took advanced math in college, and no, thank you.
Exactly, right?
It took me 2 years in high school to finish Algebra 1. Okay, so don't nobody be mad at me. I wasn't even anywhere near advanced math. So,
but you probably, didn't get the foundation pieces, and by the time you started struggling, you were so far behind. How are you going to catch up?
Yes, and back to keep training. Amen. Women have huge disadvantages in leadership. Oh my gosh, I just a side note, because I really want to get back to your story about how you got into leadership, girl, and all that other stuff. I came up in hospitality in that corporate thing, and it's definitely like a good old boys club.
Oh yeah.
And there's so much. There's like second generation what biases, and this is stuff that even now I'm reading into. It's like double standards and da 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 da. And but it was always like, for me coming up in it, is like I was taught to be a woman, or I was taught to be a leader from a man. I was not taught to be a leader from a woman. Like I did not have,
because it's the dog in the manger, right?
yeah. And it was definitely the good old boys club. And even now I've had to really learn to curve a lot with my leadership, because I used to be really blunt to a fault. Like if I hurt your feelings, I didn't feel bad about it, but that's because that's the leadership I came up with. And so for women, I never saw like women coming on. It was always women were either really bitchy as leaders, and because they had to be completely masculine, or if they were feminine in any aspect, you looked at them as weak. And that is still the underlying thing here. If women are seen traditionally female, traditional feminine qualities, they're seen as weak and unable to lead. But if they take on more masculine qualities where they're very blunt and to the point and everything else, like I kind of am, then they're kind of seen as an ice queen and bitchy, and they lose the popularity vote, as it's called. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't, right?
Right. Well, and how many cases have you been in? I know I've been in where you get there's only room for one woman here and I'm it.
Too many?
Yeah. Right. And that's really a shame too, because not only, are you running into these harsh double standards on the outside, but then you're running into the fact that the woman who could absolutely mentor you and you could lift each other and gang up together on the guys and take them out, not really, but that you could really help one another move your careers forward, because that's, how alliances work. No, we're just dragging each other down. And we as women will criticize each other on the stupidest things. You don't talk about like how men dress, but we will certainly comment on a woman's haircut and on her clothing and, how well does her clothing fit? Oh my God, she showed some cleavage. Her skirt was too short. Her heels are too high. Oh my gosh, did you notice she gained 10 pounds? You don't hear that discourse on men.
No, and we don't. And we need, and she said, yes, it needs to be the opposite. We need to help and support other women. We really do. And I think what has become perpetuated throughout it is because we are told there isn't enough room for all of us to be. Like, we can't all be leaders. Surely no, not all women, they're like you said, there's like a very small percentage of women that are actually in upper level management and executive in the C, like even the C-suite, like the statistics in the women in the C-suite level positions is just staggering. Like it's atrocious. Like,
right. But women aren't getting the educations. And when we start businesses, we tend to stay as very small businesses, solopreneurs, maybe, a couple of employees max. But we are running our businesses for different reasons. We're really owning a job, not really owning a business. So the mentality behind it is different. So, I mean, there's just like so many reasons that contribute to it.
Oh, Jesus. But there is, look at how many men do it. We should take their spots. So, all right, I'm gonna say one more thing, and you probably have a really good thing for this, and then I want to get back to how you got into leadership, girl, because I think that's like that fascinates me. But so there is a lot of positions, you guys. There are a lot of men doing it, but traditional leadership has masculine qualities, and most qualities that women bring to the table and are not construed as the way a strong leader is. Basically saying women are not seen as strong leaders because of the qualities that are inherent to them. But like she said, the other part that comes with it, women have a very negative connotation towards the words power and leadership. They have a really negative relationship towards it. This is the other thing that I had a hard time processing, because I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, women are more likely to attribute their success to the group versus men who are like, no, so men overcompensate and women undercompensate for themselves. Men will be, yeah, that was all me. That was me. I did it. And then women will be like, no, I got this. What is it? It happened because of luck. I was very lucky. Women are hard pressed to accept responsibility, and I feel like
don't claim responsibility.
Yeah, we don't claim it. And that's the other thing. There's the one difference that I will tell you that I've noticed. And this was something I had to learn. So women, and I don't say this is a mean thing. I'm not like, I'm a woman. I'm not saying this. Women don't ask like men do.
Nope.
Men want something. Guess what? Even if they are not even remotely qualified, you guys, look at management. Even if they're not remote, I can do it. How many times?
50% of the job qualifications, 40%. I'm applying. A woman is like, I'm only at 95%. I'm not sure I should apply.
Exactly. So, yeah, there are lots of spots. There's lots of opportunities. And I think what it comes down to, and we live in such a pivotal point now for this to happen, is this is why I talk about the table. And I read Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In and stuff, and I think this is insanely impertinent. Women have to take their seat at the damn table. Like
Absolutely.
We've got to take it. That's all there is to it. So there are plenty of positions, but we have to take our seat, and we have to claim our spot, and we have to stop waiting for, what do they call it? The tiara syndrome. We have to stop waiting for someone to come put a tiara on our head, acknowledge us, and say, oh, look, you're doing a good job. So you deserve this. So we can do it, but we got to take it for ourselves. So anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
Yes. So yes, back to Leadership Girl. How did that evolve from seeing that there wasn't enough women in leadership and just starting that? Because I feel like that, especially after talking to you, like reading your stuff, and you're like, I grew this group and all this other stuff. So what is the story behind that?
It was really kind of that moment of realizing I can do this stuff. I can really make a difference. And really talking about what does leadership mean? Because sometimes it's a buzzword that I'm not really sure means much to people, except that it's a bill of goods that gets sold to corporations on, here's something that your business should have. You always want to be the leader in the industry. You always want all of your employees to be leaders. And it's kind of interesting to me to talk about leadership, and sometimes in the corporate sense. And really, to me, good leadership is more about influence than force. And it's about really being able to motivate people to maybe join a movement or do the right thing, even though you don't necessarily have any direct responsibility for them or management over them or anything else. So there's a lot more psychology behind good leadership than there is behind management.
Well, there's a difference between a leader and a manager, like all day long.
Absolutely. All day long. And you can be a leader, from the sidelines, which is kind of interesting to me, where people will turn around and ask you, to help or, intervene or do stuff to really help. So it's kind of interesting to me to see how, people are.
So what was like that, knowing that you could do this, how did Leadership Girl then begin from that seed? Like, what was the first step in making that happen? Because I love the fact that you talk about leadership with women, because like that. Well, that is such a needed conversation on both fronts, not just for men to acknowledge women in leadership, but for women to acknowledge women in leadership.
Well, some of it just came because I was like, oh, and I was not podcasting, I was blogging for Duke as part of the MBA program, as part of the Weekend Executive MBA program. They have a blog on their website to attract more students. It's part of their marketing effort. So I started contributing a ton of articles to that. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I can change and I can materially influence, and affect and get more women into the program. And I've recruited a ton of students into the program because I believe in it so strongly. And I've talked to other women who are applying to the program. So it's really cool. And then I was like, I really want to do this blog thing on leadership. And I was talking to somebody who has another blog who grew it, just exponentially. And I was like, I can do that too. So it was that, if he can do it, well, I can darn well reverse engineer that myself.
Oh my gosh. See, this is why stories are so important. See, if they can do it, I can do it too. So
yeah, I'm hard-headed. I am nothing if not hard-headed.
Cheney said, I'd love to see a man play drill sergeant with 5 kids, 8 and under, not lose their sanity while keeping them calm and happy while still working. Yeah, you know what, Cheney, I would like to see that too.
I can say my husband did that with 4 kids, 8 and under.
God bless him, man. God
He's amazing.
You got a good one then.
I've got a very good one. But I will say, we didn't start at 4 kids. We started with 1.
That she said, I was told that that was my middle name, hard-headed.
Yeah, I was told that was my name too.
I think with women, I don't know that we're hard-headed. I think we learn persistence early on. Did I mute you? Oh, okay. I was like, did I mute you? I think we learn persistence early on, and I think we are much more adaptable than we give ourselves. We give ourselves credit for. We
Absolutely.
Women are if anything, we are probably the most resilient creatures on the world. In the world, I don't know of many men that could birth a child and then go back to work like within the same week. But I've met women who have done it. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I met women who had a baby and the next day they're like on a conference call and you're like, what are you doing with the baby in tow? Like, all right. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I've known women who had C-sections who, because they didn't have maternity leave, were back at work 4 or 5 days later.
Well, I went back to work. I went back to work 3.5 weeks after having my son in the tubal because I didn't get FMLA.
Yeah. Welcome to our country.
Oh my God, I know. Isn't it great? Isn't it great? So as you were going through and developing Leadership Girl and stuff, how did that journey look? Because I know there's so many ups and downs, and even in your business, how was that? Yeah. How did that journey look? Because that's another favorite thing that I love about it is like everybody's journey is a little different. But there's always those through lines of going through these things. And so what did that journey look like in building up building up Leadership Girl, building up Fiercely Marketing and getting to where you're at now?
I will say it has probably been the most wild, crazy, circuitous route imaginable. Go left, nope, go right, no, go to the other. I swore I'd never do another website, up one side and down the other again. It's just been really interesting. You think you know what you're going to do and who your target audience is, and then it can take a while to really hone in on that audience and then figure out the pieces and the parts. And then you're like, well, I think I got it. And then you're like, nope. And, it's like up and down. And it's like this crazy, wild, loopy, roller coaster, like from Universal Studios or something. The outcome is almost unpredictable where, you think you know what you're going for and like what you actually get are maybe sort of kind of what you thought you were going to get, but not always the same.
So I want to backtrack a little bit to your story when you're going through your master's and bachelor's. How was it what did you find? I'm trying to think of how to phrase this question appropriately. When you were going through all this stuff, how did you feel that the things that showed up in your life, like your parents passing, how did you feel that those were reflections in your life when you were going through your business and your company and building this stuff up and you have all these things coming? Because it's like you're doing the MBA and then, and you have that boss telling you like, oh, you're not going to stay here. And you're like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. And then all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, screw it. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of one of those things of, I had, like Cheney said, I was told that my middle name was hard-headed. I don't change courses typically until, it's very clear that I have no choice but to change courses. Um, you know, it basically takes a sledgehammer for me to be like, oh yeah, okay, I get it now. So, the good thing is I'm persistent. The bad thing is I'm also hard-headed. And for me, it was just, those moments of just like sheer, like, oh my gosh, I really do have to change what I'm doing. Whether it was right after my MBA and realizing, life is just too short to stay in a job where, I'm not beloved. They don't really love me here. I'm kind of stuck where I'm at. I mean, it's not that I was not doing a great job. I was doing a phenomenal job, but the fulfillment just wasn't there. And my dad died when he was 71. My mom died when she was 67. I was like, life is just too short to be spending another 20 years doing something where, it's not bad, but it's not good either. Or not great. So I was like, okay, so let me go find great. Let me go make the world a little bit better of a place. Let me see if I can actually help people.
Isn't that a beautiful thing? Like,
let me see if I can go help other people. A rising tide lifts all ships.
So speaking of the pivots and stuff, what was the way you helped get yourself through the pivots? Because I think that's something, and that's another thing I see more with women than I see with men. And I'm not knocking women, ladies. I'm just saying these are things that I've noticed with myself too. Is that we have a harder time acknowledging when it's time to pivot. We really do.
Absolutely. And I would say every pivot has come at a point where I basically had no choice. When I sold my home care agency, I literally wound up in the hospital with suspected heart attack symptoms. I am nothing if not hard-headed. So I realized that I was literally probably going to end up killing myself, working myself right into the ground if I continued on that path. So for me, it's just been important to start learning to recognize the need for change before it gets that severe.
Yeah,
no, not easy. Not when your middle name is hard-headed.
Well, I think there's also that, again, tying it back to what we think things should look like and that need to control that outcome. So we think if it looks like this, then I can control all the steps, and I'm going to set it up exactly like this. So I think it comes back because for me, having to go into a point where right now where I'm in a transition period and I'm pivoting a little bit with my company, it's like, well, I thought it was going to look this way. And I'm, it's like beating something with a stick. And it's just like, no, it's done. It's not that it's done. It's just like, you need to maybe like go somewhere else with your stick. And
the other thing for me is that I am extremely loyal. I will stick with something until the ship freaking goes down. And that's both a wonderful trait and an awful shortcoming as well, because, I will stick with things much longer than I ought to. But on the other side, I stick with things until they're successful. So, both sides of the coin. And it's not always easy to know when to give up and when to keep pushing, right?
No, it isn't. And I think a lot of that is just a lot of fear, It's like, if we give this up, what's next? I feel like that's such a consistent thing. It's like, okay, if I move away from this and what I thought this is supposed to, like, what's next? At least with that, I had some idea of what the heck was going on. It's like, what's next? What do I do now? You know, and I think especially it's really hard sometimes to just sit there and go, okay, well, maybe I need to pause.
Mm-hmm. That's not easy.
Mm-mm.
It's really not easy.
Oh, she says, Cheney says, I have a fussy baby tonight. We love listening into your story. Oh,
thank you.
Cheney was on the show as well. So I always love it when women from other shows come in and interject with other women who are on the show. I think that's really great. That's one of the reasons why I started this show, was I wanted to be able to bring women together.
Absolutely.
I really wanted to increase people's networks and show that women can work together. And we don't have to fall into the trap of there can only be one of us.
Yeah. That's kind of a painful trap, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And we're so easily, we fall so easily into it. I work in my other job. I work with some women, and you can see the dynamics in there when you go in, and it's just like, man, this is, and it's hard to break that. It's hard when you interject things that go against the grain in regards to that.
Mm-hmm.
Very well received.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. Anytime you go against the grain, you know, people definitely are going to get their feathers ruffled a bit.
All right. So transitioning a little bit, what were some going through all this? You know, your parents, you had the passing of your parents, and your daughter had the traumatic brain injury, and now you got 4 kids you're raising, and you're building these businesses and stuff. What were some of the lessons you felt you had to learn going through all this? Because I believe we all have lessons that we're meant to learn through this. So what are the ones you felt you learned going through this?
So for me, one of the biggest lessons has been to rely on other people, and to seek out other resources, because I can be incredibly hard-headed and very much, I got this, where there are people around me offering to help with all kinds of things. So, you know, learning to kind of let go a bit and accept help has been one of the biggest challenges for me, I will say. And one of the biggest lessons, learning to accept mentorship, finding the right mentors has been important, and finding those business buddy best friends has been critical in life and in, you know, business. Having other people that have gone through the same things that I have, or maybe a step or two ahead, and some other people that are maybe a step or two behind, so that we're, you know, lifting each other up. It's been really cool. Really, some of the biggest lessons that I've taken away are in the human interaction and the condition of being human, and learning also to kind of show off a little bit more of who I am, rather than trying to be, you know, super corporate Haley all the time, but allowing myself to be more vulnerable and share my story, and talking about the experience with my daughter with her traumatic brain injury and subsequent mental illness, and 14 hospitalizations in 2 years, and really, you know, reaching out and asking for help in the community. But it's also allowed me to do things where, you know, I can make a difference. So helping women in the Women's Entrepreneur Network, but also like putting together resources for families who have loved ones with mental health issues. Like, where do you go to find information on group homes? Where do you go to find information on different hospitals? All of that. So, you know, learning, you know, where there's gaps, and helping in the system, but, you know, accepting help and then putting that forward and paying it forward a bit.
So I want to know a little bit more now about what is Leadership Girl, because we're talking about it and people are going, well, like, you still haven't really told us.
Leadership Girl is, you know, it's about women's leadership. You know, helping women become leaders, more effective leaders, more powerful leaders, and supporting one another. And how can I support you?
Oh, I love that. And I think that needs to be more of a theme within all leadership, to be honest, even in regard, not even just like female leadership, just like, how can I support you? Because that was the one thing in reading on women's leadership, and even just acknowledging it once I've, gone to it, is men are much more supported and are much more supportive of other men in leadership. And like you said, there's that shortage of female support. There's that shortage of mentorship for women.
Yeah. We were talking about, I was at another event tonight for high school girls. And one of the questions was about mentors. And I kind of sat there and I was like, who were my mentors in my career, in my life? And I'm like, I'm kind of blinking because I have mentors now. But for the first 20 years of my career, I didn't. I really didn't have mentors. I had the boss who was asking me why I was pregnant again with my third child, and making comments about what kind of childcare I had. And it's really interesting. The men would mentor one another, but there's this kind of two-edged sword. They're not really free to mentor the women in the same way because, oh my gosh, what if it was thought that somebody was having an affair? Or having kind of a weird relationship, so there's definitely some interesting and weird dynamics where I was like, wow, thinking about mentorship, not even the men were necessarily available to mentor.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's there's that double-edged sword to it, and it's such a conundrum is the word that I would put for it. But I love that we are in the era where we can actually start reversing how that goes.
Absolutely.
So one other story that intrigues me is you grew the women. You have a group on Facebook, and I think I'm actually part of your group potentially. And you might, huh?
I'd have to look.
So you have a group called the Women's Entrepreneur Network, and it is 64,000 is what I read.
Yeah, just about 64,200-ish right now.
64,200-ish, somewhere around there.
So it changes like every day. So I'm like, it's in there somewhere. Hand grenades.
So what got you started building that? What made you go, okay, well, I'm doing all this other stuff. Let's throw this one in the pot.
It was really funny. I had a business coach who's like, yeah, if you're a business coach and you grow a Facebook group, in 2 years, you'll be a millionaire. I was like, sold. I'm going to grow the biggest, baddest, craziest Facebook group ever. It hasn't quite panned out that way, but it's been a lot of fun.
What I have to ask, what would you say were your biggest insights from growing this? Because I know there are some women on here. Cheney said, yay. Cheney herself has a group. So I feel like that's probably, what are some insights you have in growing a group to the size that you have? Because I feel like there are a lot of women, especially now, I think that's the message. Go out there and create a Facebook group and grow a Facebook group, and you'll make lots of, like you said, you'll make lots of money. Just grow a big, huge Facebook group.
Yeah. Let me know how that works for you. And I don't say that to be like entirely sarcastic and snarky, but it is true because without engagement, the group is dead. So there has to be this huge focus on why people join the group. And engagement and getting people involved and wanting them to want to participate and giving them a reason to show up. And it's not easy to do that. And then giving them a reason to spend money with you. Because if you're not able to monetize it in some way, then, you're not able to pay an admin or a moderator or somebody to help with the group, right? I've gotten lucky because I've mostly had volunteer admins in the group. Up until recently, I now have a couple of people who help very, very part-time. But, when you're getting like hundreds of posts a day, then how do you manage the chaos and the crazy? And growing a Facebook group has been fun and wacky and interesting, and it's taught me a lot about human behavior and psychology, and a lot about Facebook algorithms too.
The algorithm, God, that always change. You know what? If you could write like a Facebook algorithm or social media algorithm for dummies book, I will be your first customer there, because
I am releasing a course on how to build a Facebook group. And I do talk about some of the algorithms and stuff and how to avoid jail and how to get engagement up and how to get your posts seen.
Oh, see, I've avoided jail and somehow I managed to hit the algorithm, and all I know is because I go live a lot and that helps. So I'm like,
absolutely.
Oh, that's great. Okay, cool.
Lives are a big portion of it because Facebook prioritizes lives. Yeah.
Well, I think I read a statistic somewhere. It says it's like 2021 or even 2020 this year, it's like 80% of all social media platforms will be based around live interactive, like stuff like live interactive content. So live video streaming, things like that. So you guys, I don't need to be the only one up here doing a show like this. Just saying, wink.
No, absolutely. And I find that the more posting we do, the more lives we do, the more video we put into the group, and the more valuable content we put into the group, the better it does. Funny how that works.
Isn't it? Isn't it funny how it works? Hey, listen, as long as you have to, it's like everything else. You have to show up first for everybody else to show up.
Absolutely.
Show up first so since we're coming on to the end of this, looking back on everything you've gone through and everything that you've gone through on your journey, if a woman was to ask you, or a man, what are three key pieces of advice? And I know you had a couple lessons that you learned, but what would be the three main pieces that you would give to someone if they were asking you, like, hey, I'm going through similar things. How did you get through it? What are some things you can give me that's going to help me potentially get through it?
Well, I would say that one of the biggest lessons is finding your center, whether that's spiritual or faith or whatever that means to you, but finding a way to keep yourself on as much of an even keel as possible when you're going through absolute chaos. And owning a business, having a successful career, raising kids at times can be absolute chaos. And if you don't have that center for yourself, it's really hard to manage the rest, because it has to start with you. The second one is just being flexible, taking changes as they come, whether it's a career or a business. Kids, teenagers, my kids like to throw me curveballs kind of on a daily basis. Sometimes it's a second by second kind of a thing. And just flexing and dealing with it and just kind of rolling with it rather than trying to fight it so much makes things a lot easier and a lot more pleasurable. And she says a lot of chaos. Yeah, it's just all the fun stuff. So, we just focus on going with the flow and, sticking with it. Knowing when to give up, but sticking with it is really, really powerful.
Perseverance is what I like to say. Like, if you can be persistent and resilient, you can you can do just about anything in this entrepreneurial world.
I think that, a lot of businesses fail because of finances, but a lot of them fail because people just are not persistent and consistent enough.
No, I agree. And I think until you actually get into the space where you're running the ship, where like you're at the helm, you're running the ship, like this is your thing. That's a hard thing to grasp, because before I got into doing what I'm doing now, like I was working for somebody else. I was always working for somebody else.
Absolutely.
And you go, oh, this can't be that hard to run this business, right? Like we all said. It can't be that hard. Come on now. And then what do we do? Then we go, okay, if he can do it, I can do it too. And then we get into it, and let me tell you, it's chaos. Chaos is the name of the game there. Not even controlled chaos sometimes, just like.
No, it's just like sheer wild, crazy chaos.
Wild, wild west, she said. And I'm learning about going with the flow now. Yeah, that I don't know how much a game changer that's been for you, but that's been massive for me. And even now,
Mhm.
that's still something I'm learning.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to throw crazy at me? That's fine. We'll deal with it. We'll mop it up. We have, with the digital marketing, sometimes we're dealing with reputation management, and oh my gosh, some of the things that happen with some of these companies at times, and you're dealing with the reputation management, or, a client gets in or an employee gets in that shouldn't somewhere, just roll with it. Nobody's going to die. This is not, somebody, launching nuclear missiles or anything like that. So, it's okay. We'll figure it out.
She said, Trainy's like on fire today. She said shit hits the fan and a tornado comes through chaos. Hopefully not at the same time, because that would really be nasty. But
that would be a really bad tornado.
That's a shitstorm.
Absolutely.
That's a shitstorm, literally. No. Yeah, I think I would agree with you the most on that going with the flow thing. I think that's like one piece that I would give to someone is like, listen, just be really open to it, whatever it is. Again, I think we get really caught up in defining our success through somebody else's lens. For me, my marker of success that I would always tell people is that, well, when I hit 6 figures, then I'll consider my business successful. But what I'm learning to look at it from the standpoint is yes, the financial aspect, I'm obviously don't have a business if I'm not making any money. So I'm not saying that the money isn't important, but I'm learning to gauge my success by how many people am I impacting. And that's a new way to gauge success. It's like, okay, well, am I actually serving people? Because money is great, but if you're not solving a problem, then you really are just adding to the noise of all the other businesses that are out there just throwing shit into the fan.
Absolutely.
If we're just sitting here going, buy this, there's a million people telling you to buy something in this world. But if you're going, to me, it's, and this is why I loved when I got into building my business, I hired business coaches, and they were like, always do client discovery. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me at the beginning. It's like, oh no, you only need to do client discovery like for a base point to get your target audience. And they're like, no, every day is client discovery. And that really shaped me a lot, because I don't think that there's enough companies and businesses out there going, okay, well, what problem do you have? What problem do you have? And how can I solve that? I think that you said that when we got in here, it's like, what problem am I solving for you? How am I helping people? What is the problem I'm solving?
Begin with the end in mind. What are you going for? What result are you trying to actually achieve?
So, and then Cheney said, impact is the biggest takeaway.
It
really is. I'm reading The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to, but it really changes the way things are looked at and the way that we should actually. He talks about the way that business should be done, and it's basically what you just said. It's the end game in mind. It's like understanding that there's no winning to it. It's just always being able to stay in the game and keep playing it over, because we're in this for life. There's no end to this. Like so how do we create something that outlives us, basically, that continues to stay in the game and play even when we're not here to play it anymore?
Absolutely. And that's the game, right? Making something that is buildable, sellable, willable, that leaves a lasting impact.
Exactly.
That's the challenge.
That is the challenge, but I'm going to tell you guys, I think it's worth playing the game if you can leave something that leaves your mark. Like you said, if you can do something that leaves your mark on the world, right? If you can come in and change the world for the better. So, all right. So this is the end. Oh my God. That was fast.
It was fast. Wow.
So tell everybody about where they can get in touch with you. How can they reach out? What's the best way to get a hold of you? And just a little bit about what it is that you offer in case anybody wants to go ahead and work with you.
Sure. They can find me on my website, fiercelymarketing.com, or my blog, leadershipgirl.com. Or you can just search for me, Haley Gray, online, Haley Lynn Gray. I do digital marketing for small to medium-sized businesses, and I do a lot of cleaning up marketing messes for people.
Oh my gosh. I bet that could be like an entire episode just in itself. Marketing messes.
Yeah, cleaning up marketing messes. Yeah.
Maybe that'll
Oh,
be,
yeah.
that could be a book. You
Oh,
could do a whole podcast on that. Be like,
we did a whole podcast series on it for years. Marketing messes. Here's what not to do in your marketing
oh my gosh.
and
You
in your
know,
business.
And as marketing changes, I feel like that's always going to be it. That's why you probably could have an entire year's worth of series because marketing changes every single freaking day. So, Haley said very fast. And now not Haley, Jesus Christ, y'all. I'm telling you. I did a breathwork session before we came on here and I'm like, my brain is just everywhere right now. All right. So thank you so much for giving me some of your time. And you guys, just like, I love this show for so many reasons, but I'll tell you guys, me and Haley just talked tonight. But I love it. I feel like what's beautiful about this is I feel like I've talked to you a million times before we even got in here. It's like, hey, how's kids? How's life?
They're good. They haven't burned down the house yet. We're doing great.
All right, right. You know, it's like they haven't killed each other yet. They're still alive.
And there's no like screaming in the background. 2 thumbs up. I love it.
There you go. So, but this is the beautiful thing. This is why I think shows like this are so important. This is why I think everybody should do something similar. Maybe not what I'm doing, but do something to continue putting your impact out there and helping somebody, right? So, all right, you guys, I will see you guys next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. You guys know where it's at. I think this is the part of this isn't, I think, but this is the part of the show where I'm supposed to do a call to action. And I don't have one right now. And I'll tell you, it's because I'm in my own transitional period. So all I can tell you guys is to please continue supporting and sharing the show. We are on YouTube now. So go to my YouTube channel, TUF Woman Table. Make sure you guys subscribe and like that. If you guys feel called to do, keep spreading the message. And I also have open calls for more shows. So if anybody knows any women that would be a terrific fit for this, please send them my way so I can keep having more women on. I can keep giving a platform for these women to voice their stories and bring them to the world. All right. So I hope you guys have a phenomenal evening. Thank you for coming on. Thank you, Haley, for giving me some of your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So see you guys next Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go connect with Haley if you feel called to do so. And thank you, Cheney, for being like the MVP tonight, man. Like MVP. So she said, I forgot my ADD medication. I understand. I feel like that's all of us at some point in time. Like, yeah, I forgot that. Okay. All right, you guys. See you guys next Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, we will be right here with another amazing woman. All right. Bye, y'all.